As the dust settles on the joy that is New Zealand winning hosting rights to the 2011 Rugby World Cup, Sky TV has entered into a deal to buy free-to-air channel Prime New Zealand. How are these two things related? Well, of course they're not. That's not entirely true either. The deal could be a world first, as one organisation could end up owning both the live and the delayed coverage rights to broadcast sport in this country without a competitor in sight. This tie-up is still subject, of course, to Commerce Commission clearance, but is it fair? Does it matter? With me are media commentators Wayne Hope and Irene Gardiner. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
I think, Wayne, to you first. I mean, you have an obsession with sport, as many people in this country do. Are you worried about this deal?
Yes, I am, because I think if the deal goes through and Sky does get control of Prime, it essentially means they can manipulate the sport market. They can actually alter how long it takes for the delay coverage to come after the live coverage. They could actually reduce the quality of the live coverage in order to tease people into buying the Sky package. And if you can't afford Sky and you don't like going to boozy sports bars, you're essentially being disenfranchised.
So just to put that so that people completely understand what you're saying, maybe no one doesn't, what you're saying is there would be no competitor to them that could actually challenge them with a free-to-air sports version. They would be able to say, well, look, let's just play the free-to-air that we have to play tomorrow. And so, of course, people will then be persuaded to get Sky. When
rugby union went professional in '96, the All Blacks were winning a series in South Africa, and there was a huge palaver at the time, because the delayed coverage rights were quite a long time after the live game. And there was, through public pressure, Sky actually relented and allowed TVNZ's delayed coverage to be a little earlier than it was. Well, if you've got the same player owning the live rights and the delayed rights, well then none of that pressure is possible.
OK, a real concern. What do you think about the deal?
It doesn't personally concern me. I'm not a sport person. In fact, I look at it slightly the other way around, that it's great news for Prime because it helps it grow and build, because obviously it's going to have that strong sporting backbone that it can build a general service channel
there will be
around.
things on Prime that will be must-sees.
Absolutely, and they seem to be saying they're not going to turn it into a sports channel free-to-air. They're going to make a full-service channel and they'll have that sport as a good backbone. I presume as this goes through the Commerce Commission, some of these issues that Wayne's raised can be sorted. I mean, perhaps there can be conditions put in to what Sky gets to do with you know, the delay between between live and you know, the pay live and the free-to-air screening. So I presume some of those things will be controlled. I mean, TVNZ have already said they're going to make a submission. Presumably TV3 will as well, because this could have a big impact on
what do they call it overseas? Anti-siphoning legislation.
Right. And we're quite weak on that in New Zealand.
I'll tell you what's interesting, though. Back in '96, when Rugby Union got sold off to News Corp in terms of its live coverage, in '96, Steve Mahari promised that for protection of games of national importance like the Bledisloe Cup and so on, Marion Hobbs also promised that there would be a broadcasting code to protect such events. And when Labour Alliance came to power in '99, nothing happened. So if, you know, fans are getting ripped off, then they can just talk to their politicians. They made these promises in the past and never delivered on them.
And nothing's been done. And this actually could be a catalyst, this deal with Sky and Prime, a catalyst for doing it. What would those, very quickly, what would those sports be, do you imagine, the iconic sports? In Britain, we were trying to work this out before, the ones that they have.
The FA Cup and Wimbledon in Britain.
So what would they have in New Zealand?
Well, I guess the Olympics are coming. That could be considered. The World Cup, you know, that you talked about in the intro.
A lot of the big sports like soccer, even World Cup rugby, and the Olympics, they have to be free. They have to go to a free-to-air broadcaster anyway, because the IOC, and FIFA, and the IRB are strong enough and powerful enough, and have enough corporate sponsors behind them to dictate that these one-off events need to go to free-to-air first. The problem here in New Zealand is that if, for argument's sake, Prime was to get the free-to-air, that's dodgy. I mean, I don't believe that they've got a 91% footprint.
OK, well, let's talk about that, because this is a real issue, isn't it? Prime had to prove that they had over a 90% footprint throughout the country to get NZ on-air funding.
Yes, and
they say it's 91%.
Well, yes, they do. The difficulty is, I mean, that's probably their, you know, absolutely perfect reach on a clear day with it. But people have difficulty tuning into Prime, you know, on the UHF. I mean, you live near Prime and you can't get it, can you?
Well, I'm apparently in a bad spot.
They could probably do you a special feed.
Well, you'd think they should have done it before this programme.
This is a very important issue. I mean, does that qualify it as a free-to-air broadcaster?
Well, it does qualify it as free-to-air, technically, but the reality is, can we believe the 91% that Prime say they've got?
Well, presumably
because you say ideal conditions.
Yeah, presumably that's another thing the Commerce Commission will look into, because, you know, that's very relevant as well.
In terms of television broadcasting, is it a good deal? I mean, forgetting sport for a
well, I
moment.
mean, I think so, because, you know, it's more choice for people. It'll make the channels stronger. That's assuming they stay on the similar path they are and just use this to help them.
I disagree. I think, apart from the normal programs on Prime, if Sky goes ahead with this deal, Prime will just become a billboard for selling Sky products on their digital packages.
They probably will do that thing too, where they'll play first episodes of things free that are then on pay. You know,
hook you into a first episode, and then you have to pay to get onto Sky. All right, very quickly before we go, Winston Peters was in the spotlight yet again, and yet again he was accusing the media of something. This time, accusing them of treason. The Herald this week turned around and said, well, how ironic, we were about to accuse you of treason.
And then printed an entire definition of treason and
which I thought was very clever.
Are these days. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Winston Peters has always blamed the media for everything.
Sometimes he's been right.
Sometimes he's been right.
Back in the late 90s, he was quite right about the wine box.
Yes,
he was vilified by a lot of mainstream media, and the court cases subsequently showed that there was tax minimisation.
As indeed he pointed out last week.
Yeah, but he's not right this time, but he was right then. Okay?
And he isn't always right. And the stakes are a bit higher now.
Yes,
that is Foreign Affairs
let's
Minister.
face it, he is a Minister of the Crown, isn't
Indeed.
he? All right, Wayne Hope, Irene Gardiner, thank you very much for joining us.